There's something very mysterious in what I call the family and ancestral field, because this idea of a field is a field of resonance, which is very hard to describe in any other way than by talking about a field of resonance. And where you experience it most, I suppose, would be where two families coming from very different traditions intermarry. For example, if you have, say, a Christian family intermarrying with a Hindu family, for example, where their background and their field is totally different. And what happens here in the work is that the ancestors have to acknowledge each other, because while today such marriages are totally normal, going back a few generations, they're certainly not, and both sides would find such intermarriages abhorrent, and partly because of what happened through colonialism, for example, or all kinds of other historical events. This kind of intermarriage was frowned on for various reasons. And so when you're working with somebody now, even though now it's acceptable and approved of and normal, in the work, because the work is about working in the present, transforming the past and the future. And so you're seeing the family through time, and you're seeing the family through the eyes of many members of the family at the same time, which normally you never do. And so in this case, you would have probably people representing the ancestors honoring each other's sides, so that previous generations feel acknowledged, and the work becomes coherent between the two sides. And this brings me very much into the subject of ancestors in general, because ancestors in the West have become completely irrelevant, whereas there are still some cultures where the shamans of those cultures, their whole role is to communicate with the ancestors, so that anything that might have been done in recent times before they died is brought into a kind of harmonious state, so that the ancestors can do what ancestors are traditionally thought and supposed to do, which is to help the living remain living. So they have a job description, the ancestors, which is to help the living remain living and become guides to them. But they themselves have no agency unless the living acknowledge the ancestors. And so they, the living, have to honor the ancestors in order to open up the streams of transmission, so that the ancestors can do what they're supposed to do, which is to keep the living alive.